In today's episode, Shay Wheat shows us how she helps her clients get insane results with live in-person events. She does it all, but these live in-person events, I'm super impressed with. She is helping them do multi-million-dollar revenue events with upwards of 900% ROI. So stay tuned. If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer Podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now, let's get to it with today's guest. Welcome, Digital Trailblazers, and welcome, Shay. We're very excited to have you with us today.
Hello. I'm super stoked to be with you.
Yay. Awesome. So give a little context before we get into all the details and strategy stuff that we're going to dive into. Give a little more context on what you do and where all this came from for you.
Yeah, so we partner with coaches, consultants, and experts to profitably scale their business with events, allowing them to make sales faster with greater predictability and less team burnout, which I think is really super important because, what I see a lot of people do is like, oh, I'm going to have my team run this event for me. And they're like, that's not what you hired me for. That's not my expertise. I don't know what I'm doing. So we support with that as well.
Yeah, I think that's good. That I've seen that as an attendee of an event where they're just like, he's just having his rig and they're like freaking out and running around and things are crazy and disorganized. So events are a different ball game. And honestly, that's why we haven't hosted our own live in-person event, because we know it's a different ball game and we don't have the time or energy to figure all that stuff out.
Right. Well, and if pandemic showed us anything, we can utilize what we did in a live event and convert it into a virtual live event. So it's still live, but I would say 80% about what it is that we did is the same. The 20% is the technology and the connection pieces, but can still be super profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that I think a lot of people are itching for connection in person, they're itching to be at these live events that were so common years ago and we're held back from for so long. So why live events? Like, why should coaches and experts out there who are looking to grow and scale, most of us are used to just doing online stuff. Like we're used to that space. It's a big step for folks to be like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take that step. Why is it worth it? And how can you allay some fears, if you will, and help people actually be more on board or understand the opportunity here for them?
Yeah, there is huge opportunity. I see events as a way for you to build stronger client relationship and trust. So if you're hosting your own event, it really provides that unique opportunity to connect with your audience more on a personal level. So it's great and amazing to be able to connect like this virtually, and we can be all over the world doing it. But there's something different about being in person. It really fosters that deeper relationship, that trust building. It's that face-to-face interaction that allows, clients to experience you and get things firsthand. They get to know your nuances and your quirks, and you're allowed to have that shine a little bit more versus I'm super polished here on my little box. You get to have the meetings after the meeting, right? So it's you are going to the bar, or you're going to, I was just at one myself. We ended up having a party at the end of day one, and it was out on the beach. So Southern California, San Diego, right on the ocean. And it gives not only you connecting to your audience, but also allows your audience to connect with one another. And that's really when you start cementing in a lot of your brand work and your marketing work, is when you're building that relationship with the community. People stay longer, the retention is higher, they don't want to leave, they become more raving fans. So building stronger client relationship is one. If you're looking at it from an enrollment side, you're able to utilize an event that's going to allow you to maximize your reach and your impact, right? So you impact more people and connect with them at that deeper level. And if you're also using it as a conversion event, then heck, you're making some money too, right? That doesn't hurt.
Yes, absolutely. So how would someone know that they're ready to take that step and start moving into the offline, real in-person events?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you have, let's say, a high ticket offer, part of your high ticket offer, let's just say, is connection with your audience. So maybe you meet 2, 3, 4 times a year and you've been doing it virtually. Now's the time to take a look at doing it in person. So you're going to still do the same content or the same fulfillment event. You're just going to now come in person. And that's going to be one of the easiest transitions that I can see people taking as an easy first step. If you have a high ticket offer and you're not currently doing any type of group connection online event, then I suggest that you add it to what you're doing fulfillment wise. It's a huge value add. And that also means you get to take a look at restructuring your offer, because you get to charge more when you do an in-person event with your audience. Like I said before, because it's going to allow you to build that stronger relationship with your client base and then with each other. So those would be the 2 fastest ways that I would suggest utilizing events right now.
So these events, so if you're going to do it that way, like if you're doing everything online right now, and then you add these in-person events, do you charge extra for that for your existing clients, or how does that work?
It depends on what's going on with your offer. So we have clients that will do it one of 2 ways. One, it's included as a part of their overall high ticket offer. So it's already included, and they just have to show up, get their own accommodations, their own flights, their own Ubers, type of things. Usually at the event, we'll pay for like lunch each day, maybe breakfast. And then I have other clients that want to take it up a notch. And so they charge for coming to the in-person events, but it tends to be more experiential. It tends to be where you're, taking them on a yacht as part of the experience, or, you're taking them, I don't know. I've had some clients go rock climbing. That one, they didn't charge extra. It was just actually a part of the whole event, but that was a very experiential tool they utilized, which was amazing. So some charge, some included as a part of their current offering.
Okay, that makes sense. So I think a lot of folks, they see the opportunity to make connection. They see the opportunity to nurture and everything else. Obviously, there's a massive ROI potential, right? Like that's what we're really talking here, is to talk about how do we use this, make sure it's not going to cost, which is a huge barrier of entry for people, that they're just nervous hosting, the average online event, right? It's going to take some skin in the game up front. How do we make sure that we're going to get a good return on that investment?
Yeah. So we always do budgets. It's not the sexiest thing that a lot of my visionaries like to talk about or look at or want to pay attention to, but we have to. So what is the budget? What is the experiences that we're wanting to have? Are we bringing in a DJ? Are we bringing in, rock climbing walls? What are we doing? What's the experience? And, how high end do we want to go with it? So knowing what our budget numbers are, we're taking a look at, accommodations for you and the team, flights for you and the team. We're looking at, are you doing any swag, the experiential pieces, print and product design. It depends on if it's a fulfillment event versus an enrollment event or a conversion event. Conversion events, you're going to spend probably some more money, but the ROI on the back end, because we've crafted it, that run a show to make it so there is an ROI on the back end. If you're doing a fulfillment event, a lot of people don't realize they can actually make money on their fulfillment events. So the events that they're already planning on doing with their current clientele, if they were to simply offer a sponsorship opportunity to somebody that your ideal audience and their ideal audience is the same, they're already your clients. So for instance, if you're a stylist, right? And you help people shine on stage and, speak in front of crowds and, what do you wear and how's the makeup and the earrings and like all of it. It's like your whole design blueprint. That's what you help them with. If you were to go into like a great power partner for you would be somebody that supports people that are learning how to speak on stage or learning business, right? Because their style has to be in alignment with what they're presenting out to the world. So that's somebody that you could reach out to and say, hey, I've got, 20 of my clients coming to this event. Would you be open to being a speaker sponsor at this event? Speak for, let's say, an hour, 45 minutes, and either offer a free gift or, maybe a low ticket offer. So they can either pay you directly because what you're doing, this is their marketing dollars. If they know their numbers and they know out of a room of 20 people, they know if they're going to do a free offer and it's their ideal client, I would assume way more than 50% are going to say yes to their free offer, if not 100%. But let's just say 90, right? If I've got my calculator here and I'm doing 90%, that means 18 people have picked up my free gift. And if you know your system from there to get them onto a strategy call, let's just say, I don't know, 5 people get on a call with you and 2 say yes to your high ticket offer. Your high ticket offer is $10,000 or more. You just made $20,000 from that sponsor. So is it worth it to you to spend $5,000 of your marketing budget to make 20, right? So that's a huge win-win on both sides to make it profitable on your fulfillment events as well.
That's awesome. I think there's some eyes being opened or minds being opened right now to that. I think a lot of people haven't really thought that through, and that makes perfect sense. So yeah. So let's dive into conversion events. Okay. I think our audience is really interested in that, and they've, and most of us have been at one, right? Where I can think of, a couple offhand that one was a lower ticket to the event. One was a higher ticket entry in the thousands to attend. And both of those scenarios were selling into, different high ticket things on the back end. So walk us through, for anybody who doesn't know the language first, what is this? And how do you do this well? And how do you make sure that this is actually going to work?
Okay, so an enrollment event, a conversion event is pretty much just a way for you to go and have like a one-on-one sales conversation and instead make it a one-to-many sales conversation. Now, the difference being from the ones that you're like, oh my God, all they're doing is constantly selling at me. That's not what you want. You want to actually craft an event and what we call have an event promise. Whether people decide to do business with you or not, they are still walking away with X, Y, and Z. So anytime you're planning your event, always have an event promise, whether they do business with you or not. Now, we also know because you're giving value, because you're like actually teaching things, we only help people that are actually wanting to teach things, right? When you're doing this, you craft the run a show in a way that allows you to make an invitation into your offering. Because we know that there's a percentage of people that go, can you please just hold my hand and help me do this? I get everything that you've been saying. I could totally go and do it on my own. I don't have the time, I don't have the time or energy to do it. I'd rather pay you to help me do it, right? And so that's why we're utilizing it as an event to enroll them into our high ticket offer. Okay, so that's the first part. What else was your part of your question?
How do we craft this, and how do we do the invite, and how does this actually work to sell? Because I think the biggest is like, I'm going to do the event. I've got this big plan for selling and nobody's going to buy or it's going to flop, right? So how do we make sure that that isn't happening, and how do we do this really well?
The biggest problem I see when it does flop is it wasn't reverse engineered. So we really take a look at how are we reverse engineering so it makes sense that the next best step is to actually say yes to the offer. It's the next logical step. So in reverse engineering, we take a look at what is your offer? What are they getting out of it? What are the things that are included in your offer? What are the big pieces that people get huge ahas, or we can do some experiential pieces of it to showcase how they can go and do this. And so in crafting what we call the run of show, there's an arc. If we're going to do a 3-day event, we're going to be putting actual pieces of your program into the run of show because we have to show them what they need to be doing. So for instance, if you help people get speaking gigs in their own backyard, your part of your run a show is going to literally be going, okay, you could go onto Google and here's the things that you can be doing and, like mapping out how to do it. Or you could have our team do it for you. And that's part of the offering. So we craft the run a show in a way that it layers upon it. Every single session layers upon the next. And then we make the invitation to say, we're here to help you if you want some support. And then we go, okay, do you have more questions? Cool, we can answer those for you. And we continue to teach them throughout the entire 3 days. So I think that's really important to reverse engineer it. When you also reverse engineer it, that's also going to help you figure out the marketing. So a problem I also see happening in the space is they're like, I'm going to do an event and I'm going to do all these fun things on the marketing side and woo, here we go. And they're putting it out there. And yet they didn't actually reverse engineer it. So when you're driving people to your sales page, they look at it, they go, okay, cool, I'll buy it. And then when they actually get to the event, they go, well, this is not what I thought I was buying because marketing did the sales page, but nobody actually looked at what the run of show was and how it fits into the offer. Or they do that and they get the sales page right, but the marketing doesn't actually understand what it is we're offering. Then they do all this marketing and people are like, I'm confused. I don't know why this, and they don't buy tickets. So you want to make sure you reverse engineer all the way through your marketing. And then to actually fill the room, you ready? Filling the room, you really need to have what's known as a ticket map. So we literally are mapping out how we plan on filling the room. So if you want 100 people, if you want 50 people, if you want 20 people, how are you filling the room? Where are those tickets coming from? Do you plan on doing webinars? Do you plan on doing joint venture partnerships? Do you have referrals? Are you doing a bring a friend campaign? Are you trying to find speaking engagements? Are you doing things to your list? Like, what are all the ways? And we map it out. And then I've got the whole spreadsheet. It's like, okay, how many people are going to be at this speaking engagement? Of those, how many people are going to purchase a ticket? And from there, are they going to do a bring a friend? Like, we map out the numbers. So it's very black and white. And until you actually do this, I have a lot of people go, oh my God, you walking me through how to do the ticket map alone is worth everything I paid for you. Because it's right there. It's black and white. It's like, that's literally how we're going to do it. Now it's up to you to actually go and fill it. But here's the plan, right? Because your audience way better than anybody else does.
So for filling the room, would you ever run paid ads to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. I guess along the same lines, is the event a paid event or do people attend for free?
So you're going to use different types of events for different reasons within your business. So if you are doing a webinar, the webinar is most likely going to be free because you want to build your email list and start to get them into your community. If you're wanting to do a webinar that sells an event ticket, still can be free, but the offer is a low ticket to the event, $97, $297, whatever the price point is. When you get into higher ticket price points, that's when you're going to want to take a look at your marketing and filling out the ticket map. You're a lot more niched in because you can't necessarily be like, hey, come to my webinar and buy my $2,500 ticket. People are like, whoa, I just met you. Like, chill a bit. So it depends on what type of event we're utilizing. And then we take a look at how the ticket's being sold and in that manner.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so primarily I'm talking about like the live in-person events. How long are those? Because I think you mentioned 2 or 3 days. Are they always 2 or 3 days, or could they just be 1 day? Or
Yeah, so if you're making a high ticket offer, something over $10,000, my suggestion is that you're looking at a 3-day event. because it takes time to build rapport and relationship. It takes time to actually lay out the pieces of what they need to learn, and in that creation of that arc of where you make the offer and still have time to follow up with them and handle objections and, get into the mindset on day one. So there's a lot more that you're spending time with them. If you're making an offer into, like, say something $5,000 or less, you can absolutely do it into a 1-day event, with the caveat of if you've been nurturing an audience for a very long time, they've been on calls with you, they just didn't buy, they've purchased your books, they've done a bunch of like buying kind of transactional things, and that's who you're pulling your audience from, then you can probably play with having, let's say, a $997 ticket, $997, come for 1 day, but be super honest with them. It's like, this is what you're signing up for. You're coming, I'm going to teach you these things. It's going to, be here to here. We are going to make an invitation into our program, because again, these people have already probably heard it from you in some form already. So it's not new. And then if you decide to move forward with us, fantastic. We'll credit you the $997 and move you into the program. And the program starts now. So then you would stay for a half a day the next day, and we'd actually start mapping out your next steps, right? So that's a little bit different. It's a little bit more advanced, especially for somebody that has sold from the stage a number of times before, is really super comfortable about it, and they're wanting to pull together an audience that they've been cultivating that just haven't gone to the next step yet.
Okay. But for other types of offers, so even if you have say a $5,000 offer, but your audience is colder, you still want a multi-day event, is what you're saying?
If it's 5,000 and under, you can do a 1 day, and it's a cold offer.
Even for a cold audience?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for the multi-day events, what would the price point look like for something like that?
Your offer?
For the ticket for the event. Yeah.
Oh, I've got clients that'll do a $97. I've got clients that'll $297, $497. If it's more retreat-like, you kind of get more into the $2,000, $5,000 range. But it's a retreat, kind of like Leo was talking about. It's like a retreat plus, making an offer into the next level. So one of my clients, they ended up renting this Airbnb and had kind of 2 retreats back to back. She wanted to stay in the Airbnb and in this mansion. So she did 1 3-day event retreat on copywriting, like how to have copy sound like you. And so they were literally walking away. The $5,000, the promise of the event was you walk away with X, Y, and Z. And that's what they got. And we also made an offer into her year-long program to continue working. Like, great, I have it. Now what do I do with it? How do I continue to grow my business? And so it was like a logical next best step. And then some people decided to move forward. And she did 2 back to back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes so much sense. Like, help them to actually create like the first part of it. And then it's like, okay, well now, it kind of the first 3 semesters of college, I went to Chicago, and I came from a small farm town and I went to Chicago for college. And it was the weirdest thing for me. And one of the experiences that had never happened to me before was somebody shining my shoes. And the way they did it is they shined the first one for free, and then you're sitting there with one unshined shoe. Now they wanted money for the second shoe. So they did the first step, and you had to pay for the second step. Yeah. The neat thing about this is that you're talking to a room full of buyer leads. And I think that's what makes it so powerful. And the thing is, like, those leads convert so much higher than somebody who just downloaded a freebie, or who just attended a free webinar, or who's looking at a VSL with no opt-in, right? They convert so much higher. So yeah, for that fact alone, I can see why this would convert so much better than anything else that you're doing. So when you're doing these live and in person, obviously you're in a specific location. Are you just advertising and promoting locally in that location, or are you promoting nationwide?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're promoting nationwide. We're taking a look at where your list is. And so that might be helping us choose a location. Like, so I have one client that's out in the Reno area, and they're like, oh, okay, so we're kind of curious about maybe doing something in Denver or Arizona or Napa or what have you, right? Like, we want to see a couple of different options. And so when we send out requests for proposals, we get a ton of hotels coming back to us bidding for this business, right? So we go, okay, we like this one, I don't like this one's too much, so on and so forth, and we kind of map it out. And so that's kind of how we start. It really comes down to some of our clients are like, I need to do an East Coast and a West Coast because half of my team or, half of my audience is here and half of my audience is on the other coast. And we want them to be able to come back and forth versus like I have clients come over from Ireland in order to be in the States because a lot of their people are in the States. So it makes sense for her to come over. But there's also, as she started to build, now her community knows she's from Ireland. So when we did an in-person event for her in Ireland, so many people flew over. But she also started to get really local and did a bunch of different speaking gigs in Ireland to pull local people to come to her as well.
That's smart. I love all of this. I think one thing that you mentioned just kind of in passing there that people don't think about is letting the venues kind of bid for the opportunity for you to have it there. And I think that speaks to having an actual event person that you're working with, like yourself, to know these things. Because I would guess that most of us are just like, okay, so that's the cost. And they just do it, right?
We negotiate and we redline and we cut things out. I ended up having a contract with a venue and there was just this one clause. And I was like, that's a new clause. We took it out and, they agreed to it and we signed the paperwork and so on and so forth. And then later, because it goes from, the people doing the sales and then it goes into their own fulfillment and their own, accounting and stuff at the hotel. So the accounting department was like, hey, awesome, so glad. Here's your bill for $15,000. We would love to have that, sent in by next week. And the team was like, Shay, what's this bill for? And I was like, let me see it. And I was like, no, hold on. I was like, don't worry. I got you. I go back to the hotel and they're like, actually, we removed this clause. So you don't actually owe $15,000. And they're like, oh, yeah, sorry, you're right. That's normally what we do. So I just assumed $15,000 for like no reason. We took it out because we do the due diligence. The contract is in the best nature of the hotel, right? They're looking out for their interest. I'm looking out for yours. And so I'm taking and redlining and adding in concessions and adding in noise clauses and all of these things to make it so it's beneficial for you.
So something like this, like one of the other things that I think probably scares people off is the amount of planning and all the coordination of everything. How long does it realistically take? Like how far in advance do you need to plan something like this out? And what can you give us some idea of what it involves and who you need to coordinate?
Yeah. So let's assume you're doing a 3-day sales and enrollment conversion event and you're wanting to sell into your high ticket offer. When you contract with me and my team of certified event producers, we like to have at least 3 months with you to map things out, to make sure that we have the sales page, to, find the venue, so on and so forth. If I can have more time, I'm elated, right? Because sometimes the venue can take a little bit longer in finding the right one. And especially if you're going to be doing it in one of the very busy months, or you're doing it in a location that is having maybe like a citywide event or something like that happening, you're going to have very low inventory of hotels available for your space, right, for your event. And so that's also something that we, consult with you on is like, okay, yes. And did you realize this is happening? Are you sure you want it on this date? Are you sure, we will find it and we will look, but just know it's going to be harder. So that's one piece of it. Tell me the second part of your question.
Oh yeah. It's how far in advance? And then, what are some of the things that you need to coordinate? Like, what are some of the things because like you mentioned one thing about, okay, looking for other events that might be happening, make sure that there's hotel availability. Who are some people that you might need to hire? What are the other things you may want to kind of look out for?
Yeah, absolutely. So What I just pulled over was essentially like my call schedule. So when I'm planning and I have, 3 months or more, I can get through, we've got like 17 different calls that we schedule with the client, going over the vision, the marketing strategy, swag, enrollment strategy, budget goals, AV and tech. So AV and tech is going to be one of the people that you're going to outsource. Do not ever use hotels AV teams. Never, ever, ever use hotel AV teams for a number of different reasons. One, when you go into a hotel, they do have in-house AV, but they are going to charge you an arm and a leg and maybe your firstborn. It's like the screens are costing, I don't know, $400 for one of ones that you just like pop up. And right, Leah, it's insane. And then on top of that, they're going to charge you what's known as plus tax and gratuity. So you're going to add an additional 35% on top of whatever they're charging you for, versus if you go with, let's say, one of my AV teams. And I tend to match my clients with the right people, because there's an energetic connection that deserves to happen with somebody that is controlling the energy and the vibe of your event, which is so crucial to have and think about. And you want a team that's going to anticipate and be ahead of you and be listening for little nuances. So I'll have some of my AV teams that, if you're on stage and you're like, yeah, I remember I was, listening to this certain song and I was like rocking out and it was just like here, bang. And then my AV team are good enough to go and pull out that song and start playing it while you're on stage telling the story. If we can have some notice, that helps too. But it just adds an extra oomph to what it is you're doing. So that's super important. We've got to run a show call, print and product design call, detailed run a show. We are literally mapping it out minute by minute. What is happening? What are the slides? What are the walk-up songs? What are the lighting? Are we changing the set? Like all of those details. AV run a show where we're doing it with the AV team. Dream team call, whether that's with your current team or we need to bring in volunteers, or maybe some of your clients want to learn behind the scenes. They can come in and be a part of the team and help out. Then we do an internal dry run, on-site meetings, and then post-event debrief calls, right? So now you can see why 3 months is amazing. I had a month. I had a month this year to get somebody up and running. Now, granted, they already had the venue, but it was like, okay, here we go. Done. But I would love to have more time, because then we can spread these things out and we can be really intentional and we can do the little tweaks and nuances to the experience and the energetic side, which I feel people don't think about. And it's really important to, how are they feeling when they walk in? What do we want them to be feeling? I had this one client, it was amazing. Before we opened up the doors, normally you open up the doors and the music's blasting and it's like, yeah, let's go. People are running to the front of the stage, right? To get their seats. This one, they wanted it to start out completely different. So we had little tea lights on every single chair. We had the lights down low. We had the music very serene, because we wanted them to walk in to more of a meditative type of beginning, and had somebody up on stage welcoming them in. Please find your seat. So very different energy, but that's the arc that they wanted to start to create for that audience.
Yeah. I think that all those things that you're mentioning right now, the music, the atmosphere, all that, those are things that you just can't reproduce in an online event, but they're important because it takes people out of their environment. Because imagine somebody is sitting on a webinar watching, maybe it's on their phone, maybe it's on their computer, but they're sitting and they're watching your webinar, and you're trying to tell your stories, you're trying to generate, these emotional connections and do all this stuff to get to the sale at the end. But they've got a dog barking in the background. They've got kids running around or screaming, or maybe maybe one of the kids is sick and they've got to take care of them and they're, half their attention is. So I think these live events really, I mean, I can see why the conversion is so much higher than even just a live webinar, just because you're taking them out of that environment and you're putting them into an environment where they're totally immersed in what you're doing, and they can just devote all of their focus and all their attention on what you want them to focus on. And that's so powerful, I think. One of the things you mentioned was looking at the calendar and, the best time to run the event. Are there certain dates that you want to avoid? And are there certain times of the year that are better to run an event than others?
It depends on who you are and what your business is. So if you're somebody in the health and wellness field, you might want to be doing a new year, new you. And so a January, February is probably going to be an okay time for you to do an event. We tend to avoid right before, the week before Thanksgiving through Christmas. No, not totally through Christmas. I should take that back. You can do the first week of December and still be okay. Any later than the second week of December, you're going to lose people, right? They're just going to already have plans and I got to travel to the family and so on and so forth, right? So you plan probably the first, I'm looking at my calendar, depending on where Thanksgiving hits, the week before Thanksgiving, before that, and then I would say the first 2 weeks of December, but after that, you're not going to have anybody really join you. If you've got something where your audience is stay-at-home moms, well, you're probably not going to do something in the summer necessarily. You're going to want to make sure that the kids are gone at school and they can actually participate with you. So it depends on your audience and being aware of what their schedule looks like and what they tend to do. And then we work the dates around that.
Gotcha. Okay. And then with the price of the ticket sales, are you looking to break even on the front end? Should that pay for the event itself? Or are you willing to take a loss on that? Or should there be a little bit of profit? Where are you pricing that and how does that play into the cost of the event?
Mm-hmm. Also depends on the client. So a lot of my clients are okay losing on the front end because they know they're making it up on the back end so much more. So for instance, if I pull up some of my clients' numbers, we had a client who had 67 people register. Out of the 67 people register, 29 were buyable units. So they came with their partner, their business partner. So the buyable unit was less, right? Because that counted as one. They ended up making 15 sales. We ended up spending $97,000 on the event, and they ended up making $587,000.
I'd say for that one, do you know what the ticket price was?
That one was under $2,000 because they were selling to medical doctors like surgeons. All of their other events that they go to, the ticket price is very comparable. That was very in alignment with what they were used to paying to go to an event. So same event, 7 months later, did it again. 53 attendees, 21 buyable units, 12 sales. We ended up spending a little bit less, $75,000, and they made $529,000. So in 7 months, they made $1.1 million.
Nice. Even that, that's a 5-6 times return on ad spend. That's impressive. And just do that 2 or 3 times a year.
That's all you need. Yeah. And then if you start to incorporate the fulfillment events, so your current clients, what I'm seeing working really, really well right now is setting it up where you're meeting with your audience 4 times a year in person. And so we call them quarterly business meetings or, reviews, or you're getting them together to teach whatever the content is, and being able to monetize it by either bringing in speaker sponsors, or the ones that you've had maybe a one-on-one strategy call with, but they didn't convert, or they've been on the fence and they type of thing, or selling direct ticket to come to it, right? And those you can sell, for let's say $1,000 to come to the event and participate. Your audience comes for free because they've already purchased the year-long package, right? But they can come and they can experience it. And then it also do an opportunity for them to meet the community. And in the community pretty much always sells everybody because they're like, my people, I finally have my people, right? And they want to stay in that energy. Plus, they're learning actionable content at it. And so, it's an easier sell to be like, yeah, don't you want to join us for the rest of the year? Come on.
Yeah. So how many people do you typically look to get into one of these events? Is it, the 50, 60 person range, or are you looking for hundreds or thousands, or does it depend?
I think it depends. If you're going to be doing, more of the, that sounds like a broken record now. It depends, but it really is focused on everybody's business differently. So if you're wanting to do more retreat-like, you can't do 100 people in a retreat. You're looking at 10 people to fit into a house type of thing, but it's really nice and intimate. Versus if you've got, let's say you're selling to coaches that are newer in the space and you're selling it as a $97 ticket and you've got a $10,000 program to help them out, you can go into the hundreds and that be okay, because the way your program is structured is it is a lot of group support versus one-on-one support, right? So it does depend. We do it all. So as I mentioned, that one had, 67 and 53. I've had a client have, the 10 and 20 people, more retreat-like, and, still make $500,000. And then I've had the ones that had 300-400. I had a 600 person in-person event and, make a couple $1,000,000 from it. So.
Nice.
I know.
So now the other thing is that people have probably been listening to this and they're like, yeah, sounds great. And then you drop the price of, it might cost $97 or $97,000 to do one of these events. And it's like, oh, not happening for me. How do people pay for these things? Are they taking out loans? Are they financing it somehow? Or is this stuff that you book and then you get billed for it later so that maybe you can make some sales first and then pay the bills? Or is this something where you can promote it first, you can sell the tickets, and then once you see how many people are coming, then you book everything, and then once you know how much money is coming in, then you kind of pay, get the venue and purchase all the stuff?
Yeah, not the latter as much. The only way that really works well is if it's more of the fulfillment event, right? Because you've already sold them, they're already your clients, and then you go and find the venue. But a lot of people, when they're wanting to come to an in-person event, they've got to schedule their day out. They got to know, do I have to fly in? Am I driving in? Do I have to get a babysitter? Do I have to all of these things? And so they want to know what the venue is and the location and the dates and, all of those details before they say, yes, I'm going to go ahead and click and buy my ticket. So everything's negotiable, right? So when I'm dealing with the hotel venue, you're not paying for everything up front. You're going to pay a deposit. Depending on how far out it is, I can probably, have them set up a payment plan to break up those payments. I also will try and to get it where you're paying part of it after the fact. When you're working with vendors like your AV team, again, they're going to want a deposit to hold the dates and to make sure that they've got team that can support it. But then they are also somebody that we can do, 50% of it post-event when you have the sales that have come in for your enrollment. Same thing with ourselves. You can negotiate where you're like, look, I would love to have less upfront cost from you, but I'll give you a piece of the results that we get on the back end, right? So then it's more of a partnership type of relationship and we're both in it to, win bigger. So everything is negotiable, but yeah, when we're going through, we are very aware and conscious of the budgets and the numbers and, swag, you got to buy the swag. They can't not give you the swag unless you pay for all of it. So some of those you have to pay up front, but for those pieces that we can push out, we're going to push out. And like with the hotel, even though we map it out, we know how much is going to be spent. We include the plus, we calculate it all out. We might get on site and, all of a sudden my event host is like, I want to do champagne for everybody. It's like, okay, great, we'll get it in, but that's not we knew was going to happen. But the good thing is, we don't have to pay for it until we actually go through line by line and make sure everything is correct. I can't tell you how many times I've caught things on bills that aren't correct. And we do that with all the vendors. So we're saving you money left, right, and center.
Gotcha. Okay. So this is something more like, it's not like you have to have $100,000 cash sitting that you got to pay out right away. It's this comes incrementally, and as the ticket sales come in, they kind of pay for the things that you need up front, and then after the fact, after you've made your higher ticket sales, you should more than be able to pay back whatever it is that you purchased.
Absolutely. That is without the doubt the intention. Now, and it also allows you to be like, okay, I know if I have to hit 10 tickets, this is what's covered. When I hit this many tickets, this is what's covered. We can play with those types of things too. And that just helps some of my visionaries go, okay, I've hit this milestone. I've hit this milestone. I've hit this milestone. And when I hit this one, that means I can now add this fun thing into it that I really want. But this is the minimum, and this is what we're going to do, and it will make the event work. And then when I hit extras, then I get to bring in extras that I really, really want.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think that makes it so much more doable for just a regular solopreneur that's not rolling in the dough right now. I think that makes it totally feasible if we can just piecemeal that and, as the ticket sales come in, just pay for things. That being said, I guess the last question is what size of business would you say that you need in order to pull something like this off, like one of the conversion events? Should you be doing $10,000 or $20,000 a month already, or should you be more at the $50,000, $60,000? Where should you be at in your business in order to make this worthwhile and actually profitable?
So I would say if you're somebody that's just between 100,000 a year and $500,000, you can absolutely be doing a conversion event. If you're doing, well into $1 million and beyond, this event should be a part of your entire business growth strategy because it just allows you to scale and leverage like no other. If you're under 100,000, I would want to take a look at, does it make sense for you to do a conversion event? It might make sense for you to do a smaller retreat and have people come in and do that first and then move into something where you have 50, 60, 100 people at an event. But I would want to play with the numbers with you. Regardless, having a high ticket offer, having proof of concept, that the offer will sell. You've sold it a number of times. You have to be comfortable selling and knowing your audience before you do an event like this. If you're super brand new, don't be doing this. I want you to know your stuff. I want you to know what they say. I want you to know the objections that come up. I want you to know your people. This is a scaling opportunity for businesses, not somebody that's super brand new.
I think this is great. Random little things coming that I'm sure people might be questioning. So you talked a lot about the show run or whatever that was. Is the brand, the coach or whatever that's host, doing all of the speaking or most of the speaking? Are they bringing in, is it, a mix? If the goal is a conversion event, what's the recommendation there?
Yeah, they are doing the majority of the speaking because it's their program and they need to see you and experience you and you lead them. Now, when you're like, okay, so that means I'm talking from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. for 3 days? No. Nobody wants to just hear you talk for that long and you would lose your voice. So how we break it up is in, say, 90-minute segments. And within that 90 minutes, you're probably talking for 20. And then you're doing mic shares. You're doing engagement things. They're writing stuff down. They're doing pair shares. They're doing a bunch of other things of the content that you just taught them in that section. So, you're maybe talking 20, 30, maybe 40 minutes, depending on whatever you need to get across. But we're wanting to also include the pieces where they're taking what you said, internalizing it, putting it into the paper, writing stuff out, thinking through how it fits into their life and their business, sharing with their partners at their table, sharing out to the whole group, getting feedback. So it's not just you talking, but it is you talking. Now, if you're having maybe a couple of speaker sponsors come in, then you can have that help break up pieces. And if you have a big enough team that you want to have your team come and teach on certain things, that can also happen. So then it's not totally just you.
Okay, that makes sense. And then are you soft selling throughout? Are you doing a little bit of teasing and then kind of a on-stage sales webinar at the end, or what does that really look like?
Yeah. Some people like to soft seed throughout. I mean, you're mentioning it. So it's like, yeah, so overall, this is a part of our signature program that we're doing. And this is what, works really well. Something I forgot to mention is you want to be bringing up your current clients into those segments too. Talk about having them give a moment of inspiration or how they utilized it, or when they saw this for the first time, what showed up for them. What I've changed recently is what you would see is like the success panel right before the offer. And everyone's like, oh, the offer's coming. The success panel's there. I think people have gotten a little tired of that. And I've gotten tired of it, to be honest. So at this point, it's about me. No, I'm kidding. And I like to sprinkle them throughout. So it's actually making sense of pulling this person up because this is the content that they really got huge results out of. Let's pull them up here. Who got it here? So on and so forth. And so then they're connecting all of the pieces at that moment. And that also helps create the arc and flow a little bit better in the run a show. Then you're not just like going, okay, now all the people that were successful in the last year that I've worked with show up here. Now it's the offer. So there's certain things that are still the blocks that we need to hit and the cadence we have to hit with it. But I like to kind of change and move things around a little bit in the run a show too.
Shay, this has been an amazing conversation. I could literally go on probably for another hour or better with you on this. This is so cool. Thank you so much for being with us. We're up against the time. If people want to learn more about you, where should they head?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything on social media is either Shay Wheat or Grace and Ease Productions. The website is Grace and Ease Productions. And then I also wanted to mention that if you're somebody that's like, I'm kind of interested in like, how do I get started? And what are some of the initial things? I've actually created a gift for everybody here, which is the initial event planning playbook. So what are the questions you need to be asking? What kind of team do you need to have? What, those types of things. And you can find that over at eventfreegift.com.
Awesome. And we'll have the links to all that in the show notes and description. Thank you so much, Shay.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.